some summertime action here. We got Rodrigo Toscano in the house. If you want to read his bio, go on the internet and Google his name and read his bio on his website. I'll leave it to you, Rodrigo, to slam up some poems here.
All right. Well, this is a nice, intimate reading, which I like in a way. It's a little less masking than one has to do. Nonetheless, when one speaks and one does anything, it's a form of mask. There's nobody that's unmasked per se. Masks come on and come off at will. But this poem here is called "Write the City." It's a one-pager. It looks like it's in 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 stanzas. Each stanza has 6 lines, and all the lines are 8 syllables. And this is a kind of a reading where I'm sort of going to be talking about some of these things, which I never do. I just usually launch into a poem. But it's called "Write the City." And I wrote this in San Diego in July of 2020 during the pandemic, when I took a flight out to San Diego to see my brother, and I was in the bathtub in the morning in an Airbnb, and I was tripping on San Diego and New Orleans and cities in general. So it's called "Write the City." What's the point of New York City, or for that matter, Calgary, or any city on a hill, or hidden far beneath the waves? Any city at any time, any city planned or dreamt of? What's the point of males and females? What's the rub with transportation, movement of foodstuffs or the arts, distribution of new pleasures or the same old ones year by year, making for a steady story? What's the point of stock characters, emotions bundled or spread out, arguments over arguments, escapes from argumentation, fantastical propositions, promises to extend a hand? What's the point of scheduling things, all in tandem or at random, through avenues, streets, and alleys, secrets secreted forever, or spilled onto morning pavement, draining into holes, seaward bound? What's the point of that lingerie, that tie's length and width and color, fraying from overuse or disuse, weighing X amount per square ton, legs, rubber, arms, cotton, eyes, steel? What point in writing the city? So yeah, that was "Write the City." Then during that same period in the summer, I started thinking about how much I missed carousing at readings, before the reading, during the reading, after the reading, milling about in a gallery space or a reading space, and somebody's home perhaps. And so I thought about, here we are in this separation, and what I'm really missing is the huddle, people huddling together. So I wrote a poem called "Huddle." Mix it up, make it count, delight folks, be delighted, steer phrases, be steered in the swirl, roused about. Seek a huddle, spot a huddle, slink in, stick out, seek gaps, shoot them, spot walls, crash them, step back, make space, watch huddle, sidebar one, slip a shiny, receive well what rebounds, pocket insight, pocket wit, move on in the swirl, seek a huddle, spot a huddle, slink in, say nothing, nod a bit, make it count, spot a signal, drop a shiny, kick it once, kick it twice, kick it thrice, scoop it up, toss it, receive well what rebounds, step back, make space, watch huddle, empty pockets, show empty, share empty, fill empty with shinies, kicked around from nowhere to somewhere. So that was Huddle. How y'all doing? You
Sound
smoking
like what
a
I was
cigarette?
doing last night was huddling around at the Maple Leaf with people.
Yeah, you were telling me that right before the reading about the Huddle. But Huddle's weird. Like now I'm thinking about it, it's like people don't huddle. Do they? Isn't Huddle? It's kind of like this, right?
You know, you got your little 4-person thing and you're hanging out on the side of the Maple Leaf chit-chatting, or you slide into someone else's little pocket, just like that.
Slip a shiny.
Mm-hmm.
Slipping shinies last night. All right. Well, here's a sort of New Orleans-y poem. It's called The Peopling, and there's this sort of, you know, a subscript to it that, you know, says Obad for the Crescent City for the, you know, and I barely remember what that damn word Obad is like. Is a poem that you write at sunrise, right? That's what an Obad is, like, is officially. So it's called The Peopling for Obad for the Crescent City. The Peopling. And you gotta love or hate that word of this here cypress swamp river bend is a long, long and super short, complicated, very simple, non-story of tales, fantastical, voluminous, adding up to something or subtractive of itself, about to multiply under the radar, like people's lived lives under this here style of economic and cultural dredged collection of impulses and reflexes and imaginations, and indeed peopling of peopling, a genuine non-story of tales, fantastical, intermittent, fractaled microns of feelings and half thoughts processed, refined, marked up to epic proportions, dimensions to get lost in, to meet a few flakes lost along the way, showing the way by tales, fantastical luminescence, blown away by raging storms, slammed against walls of institutional administrative ministerings of, you guessed it, a non-story of tales, fantastical, interruptive, blown glass, mint julep, fluted beakers, cracking up, spilling out, a micron's worth of effect on the peopling in process, on boulevards, in alleyways, in sturdy, decorative, colorful abodes, and flopping makeshift tents under the highway overpass. So that was just kind of like riffing, right? Like just kind of moving along. Just thinking about the generic nature of social life before ideology creeps in and, you know, puts, you know, wallpaper on your psyche. And then you just talk about the wallpaper. But speaking of wallpaper, I am ideological. And here's kind of a sort of an anti-capitalist poem, but a softy one, kind of that I wrote at the beach in Pensacola last year at around August. And it's called Beach Time. It's a one pager, so don't get too stressed out. Beach Time. All y'all Alabama flagger flying, Cajun dinghy rigging, Creole beignet flipping, Texas gravel hauling, Georgia trailer bitching, Mississippi mud dragging. Gentlemen, can we talk? All y'all Emerald Coast revelers, Ruby Coast ragers, Sapphire Coast rompers, Pearl Coast plungers, Onyx Coast splashers, Diamond Coast flapabouters. I mean, catch, toss, kick around a bit. Bent key capitalism, worn key capitalism, broken key capitalism, lost key capitalism, wrong key capitalism, keyless fob, dead battery capitalism. Not the right time? I want to agree, but ripples over there, you can see the white caps of a dark purple wave welling up, curling over, sucking in the water's edge of time and space to dream and drift. So that was beach time. I'm fascinated by the Gulf Coast beaches and all that goes on down there, and just endless fascination. Because unlike California, in California, see where I grew up, you have a beach like in San Diego that's kind of like this ocean beach, and there's a freeway, a couple, and then it's broken, and then there's another beach, and you don't have like 300 miles of beaches, like from Gulf Shores all the way to Mexico City Beach, and like it's just fascinating. It's an amassment of souls and opinions and good times and drama that fascinates me. But here's one I wrote there too, actually. It's called The Buzz. Okay. Don't get too excited, Sean.
Too late.
And this is not a Bucky Lab candy induced composition. This is called The Buzz. The moon is probably not quiet, likely has a buzz of its own. We can't hear it. And if we wouldn't understand. Still, it'd be nice to hear from the moon once in a while, add contrast to sun's buzz. And of course, the stars a buzz, which for now might be, who knows, something else's, should we say, music or just buzz. Wasn't that a 70s word, buzz? We forget, was it, what's the buzz, yo? Or buzzing hard, are you, mate? Or what's buzzing? That's it. What's buzzing? Well, who the hell, can say most things, individual things, if individual is a thing, kind of don't say shit ever. And what if the moon's been serenading us? Jokes on us. Lute in hand, feathered hat, or slide steel badass crooning till the sun's up and says, what's buzzing, y'all? While we say, what's buzzing, y'all? That was The Buzz. And here's one from that same period too. I think I wrote this one in New Orleans, thinking about what was east of me. Big title here. This is a teeny little poem. It's called Socialist War Plan. She was sorta in school, sorta living at home, sorta making money, sorta dating, sorta scribbling things. One day, she declared herself a general. The campaign required a van, a Gulf Coast interstate, $1,000 a month, every month, a bundle of 20 books, 2 of them notebooks, a slew of talkative strangers, a serene moonlight, rye whiskey. Socialist War Plan. And this one I wrote at the Bayou St. John, where, Sean, you remember you would run into me in my little chair there. My own little Oktoberfest every evening of Louisiana summer. And I wrote this trippy poem called The Revolution, which actually is still a contender for a prize that they who the fuck does it? They write back and say, hey, your poem is a contender for the prize. Usually you get the post-mortem, right? Like, thanks for sending, or you win this shit. Who the fuck like that? Anyway, but here's one, they seem to have liked it, somebody. It's called The Revolution. This one's about a page and a little tad here. Gray birds made of marble falling from the sky. Swamp oaks taking 2 steps forward if you look closely. levee water levels rising exactly by 4 feet. New bridges made of glass suddenly appear over urban canals. Storefront signage is swapping places, making sense. Picnics 2 feet below sea level in the thousands. Girls with brown eyes rolling boulders into pyramids of gold. Girls with blue eyes casting steel hooks onto silver gates. Girls with green eyes forming a field of grass to skip on. Red, chromed out chopper cruising the streets, no rider. Purple sun painting 12 windows onto local birthing center. Hell, the word, the concept, scaring no children at this hour. Heaven, the word, the concept, wood cube and dank attic, rotting. 2-minute clip of brawny man battling an alligator in loop mode. 1-minute clip of young boy twirling brawny man in loop mode. Sundown, western breeze fanning ice tower evaporations. What the? Blank stare of a statue on an iron barge seaward bound. Bats across a full moon portrait in a trash bin flaming. Canoe made of pure sugar gliding over asphalt streets at midnight. 30-second clip of diamond tooth baby in loop mode. Bayou bugs onto a 4th generation since yesterday morning. Yellow birds made of polyurethane come to a consensus. 15-second clip of upside down city skyline. Justice, the word, the vision in an orange cloud, distending, glowing. 7.5-second clip of pencil frolicking on white paper. 400-foot mound of multicolored masks and panties toppling. Deceased couple with brass canes crossing glass bridge at dawn. Traffic barricades napping again, if you take a glance. So I don't know. That apparently I wrote that.
I've seen those polyurethane birds out there.
Have you?
That carved up tree with all the polyurethane on it.
Yeah. Well, Sean, if you've seen them just once, we won't worry. If you've seen them on consecutive nights, then I don't know what to say. How y'all doing? We got Matt. We got what the fuck? Claire?
Claire's in the house. Where you at, Claire?
Claire, how long has she been on? Did she just sign on? Oh, well.
She did. She says hi in the chat.
Okay. All right. I know. Don't push. All right. So this one's called Mannerbunda. And Mannerbunda were okay, so one of the things that people don't understand about Nazism, in Germany was that being, fascism is a corporatist ideology. Corporatists mean that you take existing body and you reincorporate them in a larger body. And then you take, for example, your Bavarian ski club and your, Schwabian ski club. Now it becomes the German, ski club front, which is attached to that. So that's fascism. And so a lot of things that fascism did was they took these men's, they were called men's clubs, and they were called Mannerbunda. Bunda means group and manner is Mannerbunda. And so they took all these sort of bro, you might say, clusters and kind of incorporated them into the brown shirts. So the brown shirts were not made up of people who were have Americans think oh, wow, look, all these working class guys that were duped and they somehow got organized by a fiery speech by Hitler. That's not the way it worked. They slowly incorporated all these existing groups into a larger body. And so this one's called Mannerbunda. And this was also written in August of 2020. And it's Mannerbunda. This was a poem about the US. It's not about Nazi genocide. Mannerbunda. Guns, shed fulls of them. You'll see will not be the deciding factor in the big shift towards hemispheric autarky. No amount of rounds and clips hoarded in safes will rewrite labor laws that integrate Canadian, American, and Mexican biopower around a vision of itself, protective economically, expansive culturally, interposed maps of watersheds, routes of produce, conduits of clean energy, lasered in on healthy work and stable housing. The big shift doesn't require belly crawling, sharpshooters, grown boy, camps, manor bunda, sing-alongs, pining after dreams of becoming sovereign, when all's entangled already, except not formally and equitably set to a higher order, resource conscious, confident future, commandeering hemispheres, collective wealth, material and psychic, brave projection, bulwark against this anarcho-tyranny, faux nationalism, yacht excursion for winners of rigged outcomes, swamp monsters becoming great again, promoting shedfuls of ammo, camo, grown-up boy lingerie, boudoir, manor bunda, posing on towering trucks performing sovereign when all's entangled already, but on a wobbly base with sideshows, gun shows, crouching, cowering, last gasps of sovereign kings, every man a serf, owning nothing, not mineral deposits, not beds of technology, not downstream planning, educational cargo, material and psychic, oblivious to rising forces, integrated, autarkic, prosperous homelands to thrive in, where crotch, grasping, gun-toting, enfeebled copes flicker out year by year as hemispheric power looks outward with straight backs towards other autarkic regions working on integration of a higher order, looking outwards mindfully, negotiating globes, collective wealth, material and psychic, and yeah, a few museums of nation states and even kinky cosplay might be entertaining on occasion to remind us of the age of anarcho-tyranny and its camo lingerie, butlers on a leash, manor bunda. So stressing out. Stress out with form, you know. All right. So this is another one. So this one was written kind of right after that one and a couple of other kind of, I would say kind of hot political poems or whatever. And so, but it turns out that when you want to cool down with a poem, you're actually heating up again. So this one's called Jumpstart Poems. I wonder too if jumpstart poems are worth it. I mean, poems meant to get at existential being itself for a moment, brief moment, stripped of social causality, not having to take a publicly recognizable position, not having to, you know, massage an affiliation, but instead riffing on what's elementally human, what's fundamentally common between folks, instead of about folks, as proclaimed by folks. Jumpstart poetry that pivots around a few key words, words that, for the moment, brief moment, hold the mystery, the puzzle of being in time on this planet. Not even being on this planet, but wanting to. I wonder if jumpstart poems are a cop-out, or a necessary moment, brief moment against cop-out, or maybe something in between, stuck, broken. I wonder if folks are almost always in between copping out, not copping out, copping out, not copping out, but play it like they're one or the other, certain. I wonder if jumpstart poems even exist, and if they don't, whether they should exist. You know, poems that pivot around certain words, words like being, folks, mystery, pivot. And if they do exist, whether they wonder themselves about poems that wonder about not wondering, fending off the hounds of lassitudes, indolence, and surrender, just long enough for a jump poem to start it all. So those are the kind of pieces sometimes I write to, you know, to get a jumpstart poem, like to get revved up. So, but then that new sort of baseline becomes a sort of a baseline that's sort of more fundamental, you know, and so yeah, so it's being broken and breaking even more. But along the same lines, this one's a little one from the same collection, the Charm and the Dread. This one's called Orphan Poem. Very short poem. This poem is a poem without a project. Like those dreams of you naked in public. Where to hide? Where's my underwear? Can they see me? This poem is a poem without a sponsor. Like a refugee we gawk at on television. How far the shore? Where the patrols? When the rescue? This poem is a poem without an identity. Like a stray along a fence line before a storm. When's the next meal? When's the next nap? Is that a friend or foe? Orphan Poem. And so obviously we've been reading on Zoom for quite a while here and hating almost every moment of it. But so I was on a lot of Zoom readers, and I remember seeing a lot of people, anyway, I'm not gonna overloading it. This one's called Zoom Reader. It's squares, you know. Square one, if you insist on knowing, has fucked squares 3, 6, and 14. Square two, not too hard to imagine, also fuck square 3 plus 5 and 9. Square 8, according to square 13, will soon be fucking square 5. Square 4, who could have guessed it, took a hard pass at fucking square 1. Square 5, we somehow know fuck square 11 and 12 at once. Square 6, when factoring out variables, has fucked no square, but beware. Square 7, you can't not tell us, hasn't fucked square 2. Square 8, blacked out, I intuit, again, is fucking square 10, blacked out. Square 9, everybody knows, is bent on fucking square 4 after 3. Square 10, we can extrapolate, would unfuck square 13, if possible. Square 11, according to the algorithm, might well fuck square 6, and soon. Square 12, in speaker mode, drops a hint it fucks square 7 on mute. Square 13, the host, just won't tell if square 5 might fuck me. Oh well. Square 14, we've come to a consensus, has been fucking itself, poker-faced. I don't know why I wrote that, but I did. Okay, so this next one is called Brown Lives. And nobody will publish this. Oh, actually, except Lana Turner just took it, David Lau, and they're like, yeah, we'll publish it. Good luck. You'll go down with me. Anyway, it's called Brown Lives. Brown lives, the phrase, as is, don't matter in Mexico. The shades are endless. Where draw the line? You'd go quite mad. What matters in Mexico is lana, cold cash. How much? How far? The flow, what things, what folks you gather around you. Of course, colorism thrives in Mexico, weighs in, tips scales. But saying and insisting brown lives, the phrase as is sacred, blurry, happy talk, won't supply the flow, the things, the folks you gather around you. The line, when drawn, would shift yearly, monthly. The haggle would matter to oligarchs a lot. The haggle would matter to academia even more. Brown lives, whole departments might thrive, service lines, blurring oligarchs, long game. Still though, colorism thrives in Mexico. It hurts. It works for some, for sure. Same families have winners and losers. It's important to confront colorism, frankly. But Lana, go see, take in, don't flinch, draws lines on top, down below, both sides, mixed box. In Mexico, boxes matter, not lines that shift weekly, daily. You'd go quite mad demarking where, jumping back, jumping over, vying to drag shit here to there and back, stuck in a box in Mexico, decaled with brown lives matter merch, donated by happy oligarchs of oil, of telecom, of finance, beachfront empires, foreground to hillside slums, background to nervous middlings, frozen between undecided about lines, boxes, which matter and why, earning zeal, spending zeal, to audit, Mexico lindo is necessary. The peso plunging today, 10%. So all this obviously was written in the heat of like the summer of 2020. I couldn't quite stop. And it's a little sonnet here called Flesh. Okay. And it's in this new collection of mine, there's I think 18 sonnets, true sonnets, 14 lines, 10 syllables, no rhyme, no meter per se, but pretty sonnety. And this was the first one that I wrote to kick it off, and it's called Flesh. It's imperative we keep flesh intact. We don't want perforations, abrasions, or undue irritations marring it. We also want to guard coloration of whatever hue hones to its nature. The smallest capillaries must breathe free. When a breeze fans it, we love the perk up. When flesh grazes it, we love the perk up, the heat or cold of curiosity. It's imperative we keep flesh intact. Painters, if they ever make the comeback, might plumb flesh, flush out commonality. Poets, if they ever make the comeback, might suture flesh, restore integrity. So you can see a sort of combination between Milton and Bukowski. So this one was also in that hot July, and this one is called Betimes, and the subtitle is A Rhapsody for Activists. Okay, Betimes. Betimes you stall, and by stalling, rocket. Betimes you're a dead, bored worker. Betimes a devoted worker without deep purpose. Betimes you're a thrill-seeking slacker. Betimes a genius co-worker without peers. You chose this. You chose dialectical wreck sensational. You pounced toward direct, intense unknown. You've sloughed off crooked dick nationalism. You've blown up indolence, on some occasions eloquence. Who can Velcro on a plasticized red wig when you want it? Who can supply you with a bronze lion future beast of victory? Betimes you're a pre-pounce poet, posing as pouncer. Betimes you're a post-pounce as twitchy twitch, not whatever, never whatever, but this, you're a spectral socialist, savage, You're a spectral socialist civilizer. You're a spectral socialist dirt clod on diamond. Who can futurize the people without the trademark? Who enacts fire canister hierarchical reform? Betimes you carouse, and by carousing, arouse. Betimes you're a hella, as y'all say, cat with hiss and claws. Betimes you're a devotee to love slamming you to the ground. Did you really choose this gem? Art thou chosen? Are you ascending now towards free-floating domes in the sky? Have you handily sloughed off sultry stance nationalism? Betimes, nationalisms offer services, left or right. Betimes, intranationalisms show a way out for a fee. Who can hyperspatialize the people without coordinates? Who enacts supersymmetrical justice reform? You're a spectral socialist, bit actor. You're a spectral socialist, stunt double. You're a spectral socialist, diamond fleck on demon dung. Betimes you rocket, and by rocketing, stall. Betimes you stall, and by stalling, rocket. So that was how I felt then, of sorts. So, and here's a second sonnet. And we're almost to the end here, actually. It's just a few more, actually, shorties. This is the second sonnet that I wrote from that, that sequence or whatever that's interspersed in the book. And it's called Insurrectionary. The day-to-day existence of people. If that doesn't change, then what is all this? These protests, these stances, rage, pieties, passionate words, eloquent poetry. What's the use of any of it today if tomorrow and many days to come aren't shaped differently, aren't lived differently? Which calls the question, what do people want? What do they want? Not just what they don't want. Let's list it. Let's study the list closely. And before these items are pinned to life, let's have that conversation. What is life? What kinds of life forms are we? All of us. And what's best for each and everyone here? So yeah, that was it. And then I just got actually one more. It's the last one, and it's called English. English. Done with you for the time being. Bayous, ducks in Creole French. Back and forth in Castilian. Laid off cooks in Tagalog. At water's edge in Celtic. Stifling humidity in Vietnamese. Stifling prospects in German. Construction continues in Mandarin. Ducks paddling by in Neapolitan. Back and forth in Nigerian. Minimal ambulance howl in Greek. Porsche flies by in Punjabi. Homeless placard flaps in Romanian. Back and forth in Bantu. Teens and jeeps in Persian. Picnickers gather in Hebrew. Ducks bobbing in Malaysian. Indivisible 4G pulse in Norwegian. 3 F-15 streaking in Korean. Back and forth in Somali. Reeds random swaying in Arabic. Ducks take flight in Russian. Beer cans snapping in Chirimacha. Dark clouds gathering in Homa. Bayou clearing in Choctaw. So that's that.
Thank you, Rodrigo.
Yeah.
You want to do a little Q&A action? Little chit
Sure.
chat?
Yeah, a little chitty chat.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
Concerns revision. So in those poems, the one where you kind of repeat what's the point of, and the other poem where you put in betimes.
Yeah.
How many of those instances would you say that you cut out of those poems? Like when you were doing the betimes poem, did you have like 150 and you chopped it down to just a few?
I was kind of honing. I was pretty close to the it was a sort of it was a progression that I was aware of in progressing. And the way that I write things, I usually feel like a cadence, like about to the poem's about to close. That's it. 4 lines, and then another one ekes out another line, and I can kind of, so I follow it, but knowing almost pretty well it's gonna end, because as I proceed, I start to feel the sort of memory, the built up memory of what's been said before. I don't forget what's been said, because that's one other thing that when I write is I don't forget. I try not, something tries not to forget what's been said, and tries to sort of redouble, not only the forward motion, but sort of do tie-ups about the whole thing, and that determines scope. So on that one, trying to sort of answer it more clearly, I felt pretty on pulse with that one. So, and then the other one, what's the other one? The times and, well, I think that answers it pretty generally.
It did. Henry, you look like you got a question.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of similar. I guess my question's about repetition, and you use it a lot in the poems just mentioned, and elsewhere in your work. And so, what to you is the draw of repetition?
Okay, the draw to repetition is to sort of reveal the materials that you're working with. It's a sort of way of saying, I'm putting this before you for examination, right? It's the zone, right? I'm working toward the zone. I'm not, see, I hate the kind of list poems, I hate when people use repetition to sort of overwhelm you. Here's another to keep you on your heels. I think the way that I use repetition is to reveal, like, not only the structure of that particular sense, but the structure of thinking as it's moving in a way. So I use it to demonstrate and to offer and to hopefully lead to common examination. And so I assume that by halfway through one of those poems, there's the examination happening by the listener or reader. And so I a lot of the sort of little add-on little tags to that kind of pick that assumed consciousness up, right? That the readership is active and not like, it's not an Orphic situation where I'm, speaking from the bowels of some cave and you're like, oh, so something like that.
So in the process of writing, do you find yourself, I mean, it's definitely very rhythmic too. I mean, you kind of employ the reading or performance of each of these, but there's sort of like a recentering when you hear, like, for instance, you didn't read it tonight, but like litigate. And then you're kind of like, all of a sudden we're back in the sort of this zone, and we're kind of, all right, we're there. And then you kind of go out and then you litigate and then you come back.
Yeah, litigators. The poem Litigators is a more aggressive mode that I go into. There's some poems that I do to I feel like I got my red satin shorts on. Please don't imagine. And I got some boxing gloves on. Maybe I'm wearing a swim shirt. And I know my opponents, but my political opponents are not distant people who are my objective actual enemies. They're actually this side of the barricades. They're usually on my side of things, and so there's a heated argument, you know, and so that kind of pivoting around litigator, when it's a litigator, it's this kind of pivoting, you know, landing a punch or whatever, and see if it can be felt or whatever. And so now it becomes like a demonstration of a sort of a rhetoricity that's sort of speculative, right? So it's a speculative political, you know, action that I'm enacting, and hopefully at the end of that I can look at it too and be like, wow, that was weird. But like, you know, I try not to embody it in a sort of egoic way, because then people can point and say, well, I disagree with you, you know, like to say to me, like as a unity, whatever, it just forces them into a unity rather than to sort of, you know, expose listener and reader as being in a flow of meaning making and sort of, you know, contentious meaning making at that, something like that. Another question.
Yeah, I liked that you I liked that you're writing sonnets. I thought that was kind of cool. I'm wondering, you know, what was your thinking about what attracted you to wanting to write sonnets?
You know, sonnets are like headstone, like, you know, like tombstone. There's something sort of inscriptive. There's something sort of like, here's a slab, and you know, it has a sort of, it rolls back. A sonnet sort of rolls back, like pushes back on decay, right? The notion of decay, and you see a lot of early sonnets, Elizabethan period, you know, but then da da da, in my lawn, if everything goes to pot, then my sonnet will last forever. You know, those kind of ending. They all do it in some ways and repeatedly, and so the sonnet comes loaded with this sort of epiternal sort of aspect to it. So like I write sonnets when you know, it's like in memory of, you know, it commemorate or in memory of, and it has that kind of more feel. For me, sonnets are like that. Now there's different, two major modalities of sonnets that I've identified over the years is, you know, is the sort of the John Donne sonnet, which is obviously the more sort of, you know, quirky, labyrinthine, sort of you know, mini epic journey of logic and thought and feeling. That's one modality. And then there's sort of more like the brass, you know, like brass, like trombone, like, you know, like the Milton sonnet, which is like a, you know, God doesn't need man's approval. God, you know, it's a, and it's more that kind of swashbuckling, you know, huge declaration. And I think the sonnets that I read tonight are all,
It's all very capital lettery.
yeah, exactly. So this is just
I
like
consider how my light is spent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
With me, useless. You know, yeah, exactly. And then the John Donne, it's more like, you know, thou hast made me, and shall thy work decay? Repair me now for my own mandate. You know, it's like it's this it's an inside conversation kind of sonnet.
it's sexy.
And it's pushing out. Yeah.
It's intimate.
Those are those two things. If you're dealing with that. Now that's sonnet, that's sonnets in and of themselves. Now there's sonnet effects. A lot of people write sonnet effect poetry and can't write literally anything else. Somebody who could do it really, really good, in my opinion, is Hart Crane, right? Hart Crane is like always writing a sonnet, even if it's really long, or so he's right on it, right? And then there's obviously, you know, the even more fragmented than that is Emily Dickinson, right? Who I have never read a sonnet by Emily Dickinson, but again, the sonnet effects are there without having to write a sonnet. So